Well, hello there. Welcome back to Timbersmith Decoys, my shop here. I'm Travis, and in this video we're going to be taking and burning some scale tips into our walleye decoy that we're doing. And for that we're going to need a couple different things. So we're going to need our pattern, which I got right here. This is the sketch I drew out of the decoy. We're going to need our scale tips and a burning apparatus, whatever you got. I just bought this one off of Amazon. All it is cheaper. I think I was like $60 or $70 for this one. I've had it for going on 3 years now and haven't had an issue with it. I do make all my own scale tips, and if I can figure it out, because I'm new to YouTube, but I'll post up on this side here, hopefully, a link to it. Otherwise, you can check down in the video description, and I'll put a link to that video and the links to both where I get the wire and the burner system. So I'm going to switch the camera around and we'll get started here. Okay, so we got our fish here. First thing that we're going to have to do is get our area cleaned up a little bit here. Is take our picture, and I'm hoping I can do this without blocking the camera too much. But I'm going to lay it out on my paper. Usually it's a little bit easier. I can take and look over the top of it and all that. Maybe I'll go through it. Right onto the edge where you can see. Where you can see and I can see. Whoop. Okay. Now I'm going to get the rough angles. So now what I'm doing is I'm marking all the fin placements. And the way I do this is I go and mark, I look down the decoy and I use my fingers just to see if they're level. What I'm doing is I'm looking like straight down the decoy like that. If I can get it just like that, and then I just make small adjustments until I like where they're sitting at. So right about there I think is, if I can get it to show you guys, roughly pretty even. So I'm going to take and mark that line. And then what I'll do is I'll just even take and get a rough measurement, roughly 2 3/4 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters. And roughly the same. So now I'm going to take and do the same thing there, about 1.5. And I'll just mark the line this side. and They're about 1.5. Make sure that this line and this line look pretty close to even with each other. And then what I also do is I'll double check on the gill plate, like 1, 2, we're kind of lined up with right here. And then I'll look over on this side, 1, 2, we're kind of lined up with that. So I'm going to go, I drew lines so then I can take and get the rough across there. So now what these lines are for is when I'm burning my decoys in, I'm going to have probably about 4 different size scale tips that I'm using for this decoy, for just burning in the scales. And when I get around any of these where the fins are, on an actual fish, the scales, the closer you get to fins, the smaller the scales get. So I'm using this as a reference guide to where I need to shrink down those scales at. Now, as far as the lateral line, as you can see on here, I've got my lateral line from originally when I cut out the gills and that. This piece of paper is from that. So I'll just take and line up here. And then I'll continue this right, as you can see, right to the center of the tail. Okay, so I got that side. Flip the page over. Get everything lined up the way I like it. Now you gotta remember that there's probably thousands of ways to do these lateral lines. This is just my method of it and my way of doing it. And there's gonna be other guys out there that do it totally different. What you gotta find out is what works for you. This is my method that works for me, and so that's what I do. Alright, now I'm going to take and get my burner, and all these tips here I've made myself. So I'm going to fire on my machine, which I've got just right outside the view here. And I'm not going to fire it on because I don't have it plugged in. Alright. Now I gotta fire it on. So if you can see there, probably not, a little bit. So I have this about 300 degrees. I'll play around with it a little bit as I start out. Each tip is gonna burn just a little bit different. So I'm gonna start. And as you go along, find a scrap piece of wood here. There we go. As I'm burning scale tips, let's just say this is my lateral line right here. I'm going to burn the first one on this, right in the middle on the line, and then the next one I'm going to give it just probably 1/8 of an inch, and then on to the next. You don't want to go right to the line and burn your scales, because actual fish scales overlap like this here, where it's got the first line is going to be, or it's not going to come to a perfect point in the scales. They're always going to be over and overlap just that little bit where you don't have a perfect point in there. So in a bigger example, if you got your scale that's here, you're going to go, and your center line is here, you're going to go right here and right here. And then your next scale beyond that is going to go like that. Hope that makes sense. It's the way I've seen it on all the fish that I've caught, and I just, if I'm doing replicas, I might as well be doing them correctly, or to what I see. Okay. And you can buy these scale tips. I'm not exactly sure of where to buy them. I don't remember who Danny Harris seen them from. I think it's Wild Impressions. I've talked with him a lot about how to, or basic carving techniques, and I've watched most of his videos. I'll give him a lot of credit to where I'm at today just by watching his videos and getting the knowledge and that from what he's doing. And everything I do is not what he does, because I've taken what he does, watched it, and progressed it onto how I do things. So, and if you want a good reference guide, you could check out his YouTube channel. Like I said, it's Danny Harris, and I believe it's Wild Impressions that he does, but I'll link him down in the description. But okay, so there, I'm gonna go get all of these done on both sides, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you what I do next. We are back. We got all the way done with both sides, getting the lateral line followed across. So I'm going to show you how to continue on here. Let my machine warm up here for a second. Now as you burn it, you want to burn and then just pull back slightly. Now as I'm coming up to this, or to my fin area, I'm going to stop. Let's skip over that. Then I'm just going to start over and repeat the process. Alright, so I'm going to continue on. I'll get all of this size done, then I'll bring you back and I'll show you the next steps. So, see you in a few seconds. Alright, so I'm going to switch over and I'm going to do a little bit of detail work going down the lateral line here. And I go down the lateral line and I just put a V in the lateral line on my decoys. So go down one way. One thing I'll say is make sure that you're marking your lateral line dark enough. Now I still got from here this much that I'll have to do later, but I gotta let my scale tip cool down so I change it over to the smaller scale tip. And this gives it plenty of time to cool down for the tip and the pen to cool down, because the brass part here gets hot. I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to switch over to my next size. So I like this style where I can just change them out. Simple as that. And away we go again. So I'm going to let this heat up just for a second. Each tip burns at a little bit different temperature, all depends on the thickness and everything else with it, so just gotta kind of play around. I usually go up about 10 degrees at a time until I hit a good temp. And the scales right around the fins are always just a little bit kind of off center and kind of wave around, so I don't get overly plus when we go and put the fins in, we'll go and have a little bit of a buffer right around the fin itself. Will build up just with a little bit of epoxy sculpt, and that'll cover just a little bit of these. Now I'm going to leave this area without any scales on it because that's where I'm going to sign it. And it's just harder to sign around where you got scale detail going in, and so. Okay, so I'm going to go that far. I'm going to come up here, finish up a little bit more, probably come right about here, and then I'm going to switch to the next size. So it'll probably be 3 sizes of scales that I put on this. I'm going to bring you back once I get this all covered. Alright, so we have our details done, or our scales burned in. We got large scales all working all the way up to a smaller, and then right around the back here where the dorsal fin goes, they're the smallest. We have 2 more steps we've got to take and burn out the front of the scales to make it look like they're shingled, and then we also have to put growth rings in here, and we have to do a little bit of detail work on the or the cheeks, have a little bit of scales on them. But I'm going to stop the video for here, and just because it's going to be such a long video as is, so we'll tackle those 2 portions, or 3 portions if you can count the cheeks, in the next video. So if you enjoy what you're seeing, please subscribe and share the video, hit like, and we'll see you on the next round. Thank you all. God bless.